Hey, I'm Double J Jeff Jarrett. That's right, WWE Hall of Famer, and you're watching Wrestling with Regret.
Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Regret. And folks, what a show Smackdown 1000 was, am I right? I mean, God, so many amazing moments happened on Tuesday night. I can't believe that. Oh, who could forget when. And what about the time the in the middle of the ring? Classic stuff. Well, unfortunately, it's too late to include those moments in this week's countdown, but for now, let's enjoy the top 8 biggest moments in SmackDown history. Number 8. Arnold Schwarzenegger beats up Triple H, November 11th, 1999. In the early days of SmackDown, the World Wrestling Federation pulled out all the stops to make their shows must-see TV. But since The Miz wasn't going to be around for another 5 years or so, at one point they brought in an actual Hollywood star. To promote his upcoming film End of Days, Arnold Schwarzenegger himself made a special appearance on The Blue Show. If you don't remember the film in question, you're better off for it. Going off their respective scores on Rotten Tomatoes, Jingle All the Way is a better film than Arnold vs. Satan. Throughout the night, Arnold went around chatting with various superstars, mostly talking about his terrible new film. Later on, Arnie received a commemorative championship belt from Vince McMahon, then he promptly held it upside down. The Terminator hung around as a special expert commentator for the main event, which saw DX face Shane McMahon, The Rock, and Kane in an elimination match. The finish of the match saw the kindergarten cop hand a chair to special enforcer Stone Cold Steve Austin so he could hit trips and count the pin for Test, who ended up in the match somehow. When Triple H tried taking a swing at Arnold, the future governor of California laid him out with a truly terrorizing backhand. As far as celebrity appearances go, it certainly wasn't the worst out there. Schwarzenegger seemed genuinely happy to be part of the show and took on his role with great gusto. The future Hall of Famer's appearance on this fledgling show was a major milestone for the company, which has always thrived on that precious mainstream exposure. It's also the same episode where the Big Boss Man crashed the Big Show's dad's funeral, making this SmackDown amazing! Number 7. The First Ring Collapse, June 12, 2003. It's a stunt that's so memorable and fun to watch. It's been done multiple times over the years since then with varying degrees of success. But you never forget your first. In the main event of that fateful June 12th SmackDown, Brock Lesnar defended the WWE Championship against The Big Show. We'd seen this matchup a couple of times before by now, so the company decided to make the finish really different this time. Nobody knows what the hell the Big Show is going for when he climbed to the top rope, but the next big thing cut off the giant and pulled off a big old superplex. The force and velocity of the two men, somewhere in the ballpark of a combined 800 pounds, made a huge impact on the ring, causing the whole thing to implode. The ring's destruction forced a dazed Mike Chioda to rule the match a no contest. That's how it's done, Hell in a Cell 2018! It's been revealed in interviews that the ring implosion was planned, but I don't think that surprised anybody, and if it did, I doubt those people cared. It was a true moment of awe for everyone who saw it. It managed to save face for the Big Show, who didn't have to be pinned, and it put Brock's strength over even more than before, if that was even possible. In a business that's all about stunts, Brock and Big Show destroying the ring ranks up there as one of the best. Number 6. Brock Lesnar vs. Kurt Angle, Iron Man match, September 18th, 2003. Traditionally in wrestling, TV matches are pretty short to make for a more compelling on-air product. Matches usually last somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes to allow for more of them throughout the show. But in 2003, WWE took that conventional wisdom and threw it out the window. On the September 18th SmackDown, Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar, arguably two of the best pure wrestlers in company history, faced off for the title in the first Iron Man match to ever air on broadcast television. The second half of SmackDown was devoted entirely to this match, which was a fight from start to finish. Both competitors showed an outstanding level of endurance, pacing, in-ring ability, and gladiator-like athleticism, as the match was fought to a 5-4 finish, with the Beast regaining the title from a heartbroken Angle. It was one of the most action-packed Iron Man matches in WWE history, and brought to you on the glorious format of free TV. Number 5. The Supermarket Brawl, December 13th, 2001. This may be one of the silliest moments on this countdown, but damn was it memorable. In late 2003, Booker T and Stone Cold were in a feud directly tied to the feud going on with Mr. McMahon and Ric Flair. After a fight in the arena on an episode of Smackdown, Booker hightailed it in a limo, Austin close behind. It's revealed through a magical phone that somehow the entire crowd can hear that Stone Cold has found Booker T at a local grocery store, because when you're fleeing for your life, even a hungry man needs to make a pit stop. After Booker beat up a guy who turned out to not be Austin, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen, the real Rattlesnake showed up and chaos ensued. Produce flew everywhere, bulk beans were spilled, and Stone Cold challenged the spirit of Batman villain the Condiment King.
Okay, are you making some of those up?
Nope, they're all real.
I'm not gonna lie, looking back at this segment is painful for me to watch. I spent a summer in high school as a grocery store clerk, and my heart goes out to the poor bastard who had to clean that mess up. Hey guys, I heard there's a cleanup call in aisle... A moment like this wouldn't make sense in this or any other feasible reality without a copious amount of police involved, but it's still an incredibly fun moment and memory from the show's past. Not only that, it's probably the best thing to have ever happened in Bakersfield, California. Number 4. Iconic Debuts, 2002. Though Raw has historically been the show where the stars make their big debut, the Blue brand is no stranger to future legends making their first impressions, and the two biggest examples of this took place in the same year. In June of 2002, considered the beginning of the Ruthless Aggression era, Kurt Angle showed up on an episode of Smackdown and made an open challenge to wrestle anyone in the back. Outwalked a young, chiseled John Cena, making his on-air debut. After repeating those famous words first coined by Vince McMahon, the two had a hell of a match, and Cena impressed for someone still so inexperienced in the business. Angle would win the match, but the former prototype stock opened at an all-time high thanks to his first outing. The rest, as they say, is history. 1 month later, almost to the day, former WCW star Rey Mysterio made his debut on SmackDown after weeks of build-up. He lost his junior suffix but regained his mask, which may be one of the smartest marketing decisions WWE ever made. After winning an exciting debut match against Chavo Guerrero, Mysterio would reappear at the end of the show to help out John Cena and Edge, making a spectacular dive off a steel cage onto Lance Storm and Christian. That was just the beginning of a long list of highlights Mysterio would create on SmackDown, becoming a multiple-time cruiserweight, tag team, and world champion over the years. Easily two of the biggest, most marketable WWE stars over the last 15 plus years, John Cena and Rey Mysterio have their time on SmackDown to thank for much of their success. Number 3. Steve Austin destroys the DX Express, April 27th, 2000. In early 2000, Steve Austin was still on the shelf after his neck surgery, but was on the mend. As the build to the Rock and Triple H's title match at Backlash reached a fever pitch, the WWF decided to add fuel to the fire by advertising that the Rattlesnake would be in the Rock's corner at the pay-per-view. The McMahon-Helmsley Faction, hat tip to Edge and Christian for that one, was on pins and needles all night during the go-home episode of SmackDown, as Stone Cold had been leaving little clues all throughout the arena. The night culminated with Austin appearing outside the arena atop a crane that was suspiciously close to the DX Express, the baddie's mode of transportation at the time. From there, Austin hopped into the crane and took the controls, thus beginning a hilariously edited yet iconic closing moment for the show.
That's the DX Express!
I know what you're probably wondering, and the answer is no. I'm not the one who sped up that footage of the beam falling. Looking back at it now, the whole moment's actually kind of hokey. Michael Cole does nothing to add to the gravity of the situation, the editing is so obvious it hurts, and Shane McMahon looks like he couldn't care less. It somehow looks better when they recreated it in SmackDown 2. Yet when people talk about their favorite moments in SmackDown history, this one almost always comes up first. I'll admit the segment is very historically significant. It's Steve Austin, the biggest star in the company, making his first on-air appearance in 6 months, perpetrating quite possibly the biggest destruction of private property of his career, all before a big money match at their next pay-per-view. In terms of wild moments, it was very tough for SmackDown to top what they did on this night. Number 2. Billy and Chuck's Wedding, September 12th, 2002. Late 2002 was a weird time for WWE and their relationship with the LGBT community. On the same week that Billy and Chuck were getting ready to get married on SmackDown, Raw countered with that famous HLA segment that saw 2 women in bikinis try and fail to make out before getting crushed by the future Umaga and the superhero in training. But then it was time for the commitment ceremony as part of SmackDown's season premiere. SmackDown having seasons, that implies that they get breaks in between. The event got lots of hype, even prompting GLAAD to throw their support behind it, but it's safe to say that what they expected to happen was very different from the final product. After coming out, pun fully intended, to a cover of It's Raining Men, Billy and Chuck shared their vows, exchanged their rings, and were almost ready to seal their pledge with a kiss. But at the very last second, the former tag champs got cold feet, admitting it was all a publicity stunt. Then came one of the most awesome twists in wrestling history when the old priest ripped off his makeup to reveal Raw GM Eric Bischoff right before 3-minute warning came in and beat down Billy and Chuck like they were a couple of unconvincing lesbians. Unfortunately for the ambiguously gay duo, the guys would reach their peak as a team with this segment, never able to recapture their awesome run in the months leading up to it. But for the amount of hype and exposure the segment got, combined with the execution of a bait and switch that was so well done, it's hard to get mad that they didn't actually go through with it. Billy and Chuck's wedding deserves a spot near the top of this list. Before I reveal the number one moment, here are a few honorable mentions. And the number one biggest moment in SmackDown history is the SmackDown after 9/11, September 13th, 2001. It might sound cliche to say the events of September 11th, 2001 changed everything, but they did. The attacks made our nation put everything into question, especially how we'd be able to go back living our lives. This may sound like hyperbole, but the first SmackDown after 9/11 may have gone a long way into putting us back on that path. After the attacks of that Tuesday morning, the decision was made to go live Thursday in Houston, beating the NFL and Major League Baseball by several days. The show is known for being the first public gathering of that size after the terror attacks. Vince McMahon opened the broadcast in his very comfortable shirt and in his speech declared that the spirit of America was alive that night in Houston. After McMahon's speech, Lillian Garcia gave the performance of a lifetime, delivering an amazing rendition of the national anthem. The episode was peppered with video messages from wrestlers sharing their thoughts and feelings about what happened on that fateful day. With the exception of Stephanie McMahon, who used the steroid trial of 1994 as an analogy to the biggest attack on US soil in history, it was a very classy tribute to America.
A few years ago, some people tried to destroy my family. They attacked my father's reputation.
That's enough, Steph. The card itself was nothing special, a continuation of the invasion storyline but with zero emotional stakes or angle progression. The longest match of the night was the main event between Kurt Angle and Rhino at just under 5 minutes, while the shortest match was The Rock defending the WCW title against Shawn Stasiak in all of 3 seconds. But the matches and their lengths aren't the story here. For the sold-out crowd and the millions watching at home, the SmackDown after 9/11 was one of the biggest symbols of American patriotism and perseverance in the aftermath of the attacks. A message that the nation and its citizens were ready to go back to their lives and not live in fear. An excuse for fans to take their minds off the tragedies of the real world. Those reasons are why the SmackDown after 9/11 is the biggest moment in the show's history. What moments from the blue brand are your favorite? Let me know in the comments section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.